Welcome back to the Triple Double Watch, guys. We are back to recap Game 2, and it's our first virtual recap because you can't really see in my background. It's recorded at night, but I'm at the beach. So, woo, beach vibes. Okay.
Should have brought me.
Yeah, well, it's wasn't my decision.
Anyway.
So we're back to recap the Golden State-Boston game. Golden State won 107-88, Game 2. Series is tied up 1-1 now. Head back to Boston, Game 3 on Wednesday. So first we'll talk about we'll briefly run down the box score and stuff. Tatum and Brown both started off really hot. Their final stat lines don't look too great. Tatum finished with 28 points. Brown finished with 17. Derek White off the bench with 12. Really no other contributions from Celtics players. Kind of their downfall in this game. We'll get into that later. Warriors, Steph started out hot, stayed hot, finished with 29, and really only 3 quarters of action, most the fourth. Wiggins had 11, Kevon Looney had 12, Clay had 11, really bad shooting. We'll talk about his struggles later too. Jordan Poole off the bench, 17. Gary Payton off the bench for 7. Other contributions so later in there. So a good overall game for the Warriors. First, let's talk about kind of the Warriors' adjustments. Bjelica got some minutes this game early in the second quarter. We did not expect that to happen.
That might have to do with Iguodala, I would think.
Yeah, he was out for Game 2. With a knee injury.
So that's probably just. It wasn't a lot. He ended up with 11, so it wasn't, anything extreme. But it was minutes that we weren't expecting, so a little bit of a change up. But like you mentioned, the Warriors pretty much ran a 7-man rotation, and those 2 guys off the bench were way better in this game than any of the Celtics bench.
Yep.
You got 17 from Poole and 7 from Payton, but 25 minutes of Gary Payton tonight. So.
Yeah, and Bjelica looked very good on defense. We know offensively he's fine. He finished 6 points, 3 or 4 shooting, 5 rebounds. We just thought he couldn't guard guys like Tatum and Brown. But Steve Kerr was smart. He played Bjelica when Daniel Tice started the second quarter, and I think Brown was out to start the second quarter. So the only real nightmare matchup then was Tatum. And Tatum did get matched up against him once or twice, and Bjelica stayed solid. He forced him into one direction. The Warriors knew where the help was coming from. And by no means is Bjelica a rim protector, but he altered some shots in that second quarter and gave them some good minutes with Iguodala out. So Gary Payton then played 25 minutes, and he was also huge tonight. What'd you take of his minutes tonight?
He's one of those guys that nothing really stuck out. I just played solid defense like usual, and it was just first time back out there. You could tell he was just getting. There was a couple times he looked a little skittish, I think, and a little hesitant to do this or this. But I feel like going forward, he could be a good guy that can stick on Jaylen Brown in big spots. So it was nice to see him back out there after the injury.
Absolutely. And talking about Gary Payton, we'll talk about how some of his matchups, he's really good against a guy like Brown and Smart and stuff, but they tried to put him on Tatum some, and that first half it really wasn't working out. Tatum was shooting right over him a lot. And just in general, if Tatum didn't have Wiggins or Draymond on him, he was shooting right over everyone in that first half. Mm-hmm. And the Warriors made a good halftime adjustment. They did not switch any pick and rolls then in the second half. They were hard hedging. They were keeping Wiggins or Draymond on at all times. Because that first half, Celtics were running a lot of screens with Smart being the screen setter or Brown being the screen setter. And when Gary Payton or Steph or even Clay most times got on him, Tatum was rising up and shooting. He started like 5 of 6 from 3. So,
yeah, he was locked in from the get-go. As soon as I turned the game, Jaylen Brown and him the same. It was more of a Brown at the very beginning. I think Brown had the first 9 to start the game, but Tatum really came on in that first half, and you would have loved to see that in the second half. But like you said, the Warriors came out with a great game plan against him. I just, like I said before on our preview, I think Wiggins is the X factor. You got to have him on Tatum. I think you got to match his minutes. Uh, yeah, I just think Wiggins guarding him is going to be what wins the series for him. If he's not on him, if they switch like they were, might get killed.
Yeah, and I think Tatum was 7 of 12 maybe at halftime, something like that. He finished the game 8 of 19 then, didn't play in the fourth. That means in that third quarter when they switched their adjustments, kept Wiggins on him, gave him a lot of help to then get back to him. That means Tatum only went 1 of 7 in that third quarter. So obviously shows the impact of Wiggins on defense and shows how much Ime Udoka is trying to get that easier matchup for Tatum. So really good adjustment by Ime Udoka to get those matchups, and then readjustment by Kerr to not allow that to happen in the second half.
Yep.
So speaking of the coaches, I wanted to talk about how both coaches used their timeouts really well in that first half. It was very run-oriented in that first half, ended with the Warriors only being up 2 at halftime. But both times, it seemed like every time they called a timeout, either coach, that team followed up with an 8-0 run. So
yeah, that's really what you want. I mean, anytime the other team's making a run, you call that timeout, it's mostly to just stop the momentum. So it's, as a coach, it's wonderful to see that reaction from your team. But that could go back to what we mentioned in the preview too, the matchup of coaches and like any advantage. I think both of them are still great, but Kerr with those halftime adjustments showed his championship knowledge, and like you said, those timeouts on those runs. Not having Kerr before when he had COVID showed exactly what I mentioned in the preview, that how valuable having him there is. I mean, there was, like I mentioned, there were some runs in those other games that just weren't stopped, but tonight was the perfect time. They used the timeouts perfectly. Perfect stop of momentum and switch the momentum to your side like it's supposed to. So
yeah, absolutely. And then the third quarter Warriors showed up like they have for 7 years now. It's not slowed down in the playoffs with or without KD, before or after. The third quarter Warriors have still been amazing. They went into the third quarter up 2 and left it up 23. So, and the game was over. Especially when Jordan Poole hit that shot to end the third quarter from near half court, the game was over at that point.
That was a kill shot.
Starters back in for the fourth. We're good. So
absolute kill shot.
But let's talk about that third quarter some. I mean, what did you see out of the Warriors there in that third quarter?
Well, the third I missed a little bit, so I didn't see about the first half of it, honestly. But when I turned it on, it was just the Celtics defensively looked like they were falling apart, and the Warriors offensively were the Warriors. It's third quarter Warriors. It's almost as good as Game 6 Clay, honestly, at this point. It's just
Game 6 Clay, third quarter Game 6 Clay.
Exactly, it's going to happen pretty much every time. So, but yeah, the Celtics, it's like they've got it figured out for a little bit, but then the Warriors come back. It's just, I don't know how to explain it, but the Warriors
amped up their defense to another notch in the third quarter, and they had a lot of easy, fast break points. And, we mentioned the turnover battle is going to be huge in this series. Both teams get out and run well. And Warriors must have had at least 10 free points. And when they weren't getting free points, Curry was getting open. Wiggins was slashing to the bucket a lot in the third quarter. And Jordan Poole came in, hit a big shot or two in the third quarter, and it was just downhill for the Celtics.
Yeah.
All right, so it was a good game overall for 3 quarters. The fourth quarter was meaningless, but it was definitely a fun 3 quarters. And one of the biggest plays that will be talked about probably some tomorrow is the Draymond and Jaylen Brown interaction. So Draymond already had a technical when this play happened. And what was it? Jaylen Brown going up for a 3, right?
Yeah, he got hit on the landing of the 3, and they called a foul on Draymond. and they were kind of just laying there, and Draymond kind of had his feet on Jalen's. I don't know if it was his head, like kind of
Yeah.
his shoulders, kind of. So Jalen just kind of pushed his arms off, or pushed his feet off of his head,
Yep.
and Draymond didn't like that. So they kind of just started pushing and shoving each other. Draymond tried to pull, some people were saying tried to pull Jalen's shorts down to get up, and
It did look weird in the replays.
yeah. So it was an interesting one, and a lot of people, it was, both sides were arguing. I saw about got to give him a tech there, but he already had one. I mean, it's just obviously
Yeah.
there's bias, but a lot of unbiased people, including the broadcast, was mentioning that good reffing knows who has techs. So like,
Yeah.
Draymond already had one in that instance. So they asked, I forget the rules guy that ESPN uses. Was it Jabby?
Steve Javy.
Yep.
Yeah, Steve Javy.
So he mentioned Mark Jackson asked him, "Do you guys know who has techs in that huddle?" And he's like, "Absolutely."
Yeah.
Because you don't want to kick a guy out in that spot. It wasn't in the end. It wasn't that big of a deal. It was just two guys in the same spot.
Well, here's why I love that too, is because obviously at the time it was a 3-point game or whatever, so it could be a huge momentum shift without Draymond the rest of the game.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I love that too is because and I bring this up all the time. I feel like I've brought it up in multiple. I definitely have now. But back in that 2016 finals when Draymond got a tech in Game 4 and suspended Game 5 with that altercation with LeBron. To me, I know actually LeBron knew he was one tech away from being suspended.
Oh yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind LeBron didn't know, hey, if I egg him on enough in this game, he's suspended Game 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
And same situation here. Draymond already has one tech. There's no reason. Now, this was Jaylen Brown, but maybe Jaylen Brown even knows, but there's also no reason that Peyton Pritchard or Grant Williams or Daniel Tice can't get up in him and try to get a double tech because Grant Williams doesn't care if he gets a technical.
Yeah.
Grant Williams doesn't care if he gets two technicals, really, if it means that Draymond's out the game too.
Yeah, and to that point,
that they know that for sure.
Grant Williams was really trying. I mean, there were some moments you could tell Grant was trying to get it out of him. And that might be even from the bench. They might send Grant out there and say just try to get under his skin. But exactly. I think that's just more of a Grant Williams naturally does that to people.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, they know. Everybody on that floor knows. He already had one, which I don't even recall. Was it him and Tatum that got a double? I think that was...
I don't really remember now either.
I think it was like after a whistle, and they were just kind of arguing, and then they just...
It happened so quickly, too.
And it was like off camera, so like...
I think it was a double technical, though, because I didn't see anybody shoot free throws.
Yeah,
so
yeah, I think it was him. I believe it was him and Tatum. So, but yeah, everybody knows out there. So
2 questions on that. So if Draymond doesn't have a technical there, do you think they get a double technical there then?
It still was. I mean, I don't know. It was one of those that happens almost once a game in today's NBA. But in this playoffs, we've seen people get techs for much less. I mean, Kyle Anderson barely even said a word to a ref and got ejected.
Exactly, in a span of 30 seconds.
Yeah, in a span. I mean, it wouldn't have surprised me if he hadn't already had one if they had given him out. But I don't know. It seems so little in the moment,
From a player's perspective, too, I could see the situation for both players, and I understand it, like the frustration and how they were upset, both of them. And it's just kind of in the moment thing. And it didn't escalate. They didn't really even push and shove, really. There was a grab on both sides. I thought it was one of those things I wouldn't have cared if they didn't get technicals in general, and especially since Draymond already had one, I think it was definitely the right call, though.
Yeah.
Okay. So besides Draymond and Brown altercation, another main headline of the night was Curry solidifying, if they win the series, kind of already locking in his potential finals MVP campaign. Yeah. Just was the engine all night, steady all night. Didn't have the hot start he did in Game 1, but it was 8 points every quarter and You look at it, he's shooting over 50% for the night. He's getting assists. He's torching the defense. So how do you look for you?
It looked like Steph Curry.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, he's easily the Finals MVP if they end up pulling this one out. Unlike my prediction, which it could always change. I mean, he
It was
could.
a long shot prediction anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like this isn't gonna. He's not gonna go any. He could go like a 10-point game, but it's highly unlikely at this point. Especially with the way he's been performing. Which I'd have to look, but I don't know how he was. Well, I remember he didn't play most of their regular season game, but I'd like to see how he shoots in TD Garden.
For
But
sure.
I don't think it's going to change, especially the way he looked tonight. He looked like Steph Curry, best shooter we've ever seen, and he made it look easy. But that would partially because the Celtics just started falling apart.
Yeah, I'm almost mad at the Celtics. There was times Curry would just kind of walk down the court, be the trail guy if
Yep.
Draymond was sticking up or Wiggins in fast break. And I don't care if he's walking at a 2-mile-an-hour pace. You got to know where he's at. And there
you
were
got to know
times
where
they
he's
would drive in the paint, and he would just spot up on the wing, not even that deep. He would have a toe up 3-pointer,
at.
and that's just easy pickings for him.
Exactly.
So I don't know, but regardless of that, Warriors did a lot of good schemes for him. Got him off some pick and rolls, got him off ball screens. Curry had the floater going tonight, and if he's got the floater going, he's extremely difficult to guard.
Right.
Then had some great passes. Times he was drawing 3 bodies and making the right pass then. So, and this is all without Klay Thompson, really.
Not much contribution at all.
So Clay was all right in game 1, but not great. Tonight he finished with 11 points on 4 of 19 shooting.
1 of 8 from 3.
1 of 8 from 3.
That's not Klay Thompson, which I feel like we kind of predicted this in we knew it was going to be up and down.
Yeah.
It's just how his postseason's been, but when your team's up 29 and there's like 4 minutes left in the game and you're still in,
Yeah.
you need to figure something out.
That was really interesting. They kept Clay in
Yeah,
for a long time.
I was questioning it. I was watching it with one of our friends, Hayden, and I was like, why is he still in? Why is he still in? It didn't really did it even get within 15 or 20?
I don't think it got below 20 until the absolute end of the bench was in. And then at that point, there was 2 minutes to go.
It's just got to be something in the coaching staff, like giving him some time to figure it out.
They just wanted to get him going in some way. And even then, he got a lot of open looks early in the fourth against the Celtics bench unit and still couldn't get him to fall.
I know. And I feel like going forward, if the Celtics figured out what they're doing defensively at home, you're going to have at least 15 or 20 from Clay. You can't have shooting nights like this.
Exactly. But in a way, the Warriors, it could almost be a positive thing because you're doing this well. They did very well in game 1, even for 3.5 quarters until they gave up the big run. And they do amazing in game 2, and you haven't had a signature Clay performance. You haven't had an average Clay performance yet.
You just got to wait for game 6, like we said.
Exactly. If you get to game 6 now, you're A-OK set up. So, almost more positive for the Warriors because if he gets it going, that opens up more space for Steph, slashing room for Wiggins.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So, going forward, the Celtics going to have to make some adjustments. What do you think they need to do in Game 3 on Wednesday?
Well, I think first of all, as hot as Tatum and Brown started, if you look at the box score, Jason Tatum with a minus 36 plus minus. That is a career low.
In 3 quarters.
In 3 quarters.
Which actually that might not help him. Maybe if he gets it in the fourth, he ups it a bit. But
that is any game he's ever played in the NBA. That's his worst plus minus performance. Which, like I said, he didn't play horrible. It didn't feel like shot all right. Really came out hot. kept them in the game for a while there. But that's got to change. That's got to change. The defense has got to change, and you got to get more out of your role players. I mean,
Yeah.
White was solid, but other than that, you get from the bench. You get 6 from Williams, 4 from Pritchard. You don't get anything from Tice, and Naismith played some of those third quarter minutes and gave you 4. But from the actual role players, you get 12 from White, 4 from Pritchard, and 6 from Williams. You got to have more.
To go even further, Marcus Smart had 2 points, had 19 in game 1. Al Horford, best shooter on the court from game 1, had 2 points again tonight.
And Rob Williams with 2.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said Al Horford's got to have one of these games where he puts the team on his back, but he also can't then turn it around with I'm useless on offense in game 2.
Yeah, I mean, he shot 4 times tonight.
Yeah. I mean, it was odd because it's not like anybody different is closing out on him. It's not like anybody super quick or super tall is closing out on him, but he just wasn't looking at the bucket as much. And I don't know. It was a very strange Horford game for sure.
Really strange.
Yeah, the next worst plus minus, which let's be honest, it's a little overrated because you kind of just get unlucky sometimes. But the next worst one was Derek White at minus 17. So a very huge gap though between them.
Yeah, I didn't even really know about that plus minus until I seen it after the game. I mean, that's wild. Even as you mentioned, it can be overrated and can be skewed heavily in certain situations. Star player having a minus 36, that's something to look at.
Yeah. Well, going into game 3, I really want to see Marcus Smart get the crowd going, whether it be some hustle save or hit a 3 or 2 to start the game. He's kind of the leader of this team, the longest tenured, and he gets TD Garden rocking. Tatum and Brown will always do their thing to get it rocking, but Marcus Smart can really get it going. And even to a farther extent, he's got to play a little bit better defense too. He's got to fight through screens a little more. He seemed frustrated tonight by the refs, which I think did favor the Warriors a little bit. But at the same time, you got to play through that. He was asking, for every call it seemed like, and at some point, you got to get down. You got to play defense. You got to get to the bucket.
Yeah,
so.
I just think going forward, you got to look at our X factors we mentioned. Still, I mean, Wiggins is another night. It's just a all right night. I mean, if he had played the 4th, it would have probably been better. But with the way they were playing tonight, you would like more offensively, I think. And then Draymond, another all right night. But
he was at least better.
Yeah, he was better. But as you mentioned in the preview, you still want him near a triple-double. He had 9.75, I think.
Only 1 turnover, so I'm fine with it.
Yeah, it's not bad. But you still like to have more, and you got to have that situational awareness to not even be put in that situation with the altercation.
For sure.
You don't need to get into stuff like that. And then on the Celtics side, definitely need those X factors to step up. Horford can't have 2, and Smart was yours?
Yep.
Yeah, Smart, yeah.
Horford was mine.
Yeah.
Smart was yours.
Smart was mine. There we go.
Yeah. That's all the same.
Yeah, either way, both of those guys cannot have stuff like that.
And then Celtics just survived the third quarter and give yourself a shot in the fourth quarter like game 1. And in TD Garden, you for sure have a chance. So Wednesday night is game 3. It'll be a good one. Pivotal game 3. Warriors are going to try to steal home court advantage back. Tips off at 8 o'clock. We will be recording that night, and we'll be posting on Thursday of the game 3 recap. So make sure to look out then and to join us again. We hope you enjoyed this one. Until next time, this was Triple Double Watch.